Yo, what's up, aliens? AHEE here. So today we're going to be dissecting Skrillex's Mumbai Power Ableton clip that he posted earlier today. If you haven't checked out the song, go check it out, and also the song Fuji Opener, also called Ping Pong. So good, it's so incredible. I love Skrillex. I loved his stuff since the beginning. And it's a huge inspiration to me. So super happy to be able to dive into this and also to be able to have y'all understand. So this is going to be sort of advanced. So if you're new to Ableton, I don't know how much you're going to get out of this, but maybe you'll get something. But if you're very used to Ableton, we're going to go into some like really deep techniques, particularly in the routing section. And also, this isn't a sound design tutorial or anything like that. You're not going to learn sound design for this or how Skrillex makes his sounds. What this video is going to dive into is dissecting really the mixing routing, as that's, I think, an overlooked part in a lot of people's productions. And it's something that I've personally learned from I've taken classes from other people that have learned from that have collaborated with Skrillex, like Virtual Riot and Toro Toro. They did this thing a couple years ago in LA I went to, very mind-opening. And they mentioned their collabs with Skrillex, and it was really interesting to see that a lot of what they said was true, and also some things that I learned beyond that. So without further ado, let's get into this. So first off, his desktop screensaver, the classic Alien, and also it's so clean. My desktop's so messy. Jeez. All right, I just want to double check that we're still recording. Yeah, cool. So here, first of all, before we play the track, I definitely recommend you listen to the whole thing on his upload, just so that way you can hear the track, because I'm going to be starting and stopping a lot. But first of all, I wanted to say I noticed here was the folders, and he's got FM8 Monsters, which is probably a lot of like rendered basses from FM8. ID Graveyard, I think that's funny. Chaos Odyssey played some venue in Vegas recently. It's called Chaos, so I'm assuming it's from that. Prime Loops, Urban and Vocal Dance. I'm surprised that has its own folder. It's a really good vocal sample pack that came out like years and years ago. That has his like classic drop the bass kind of samples, take you snares, unreleased collabs, drops only. I don't know what is in there, but unreleased collabs, that's got to be an amazing folder. So first of all, on here there's a lot of tracks, and we're going to be zooming into a lot of different portions, and this is like a more melodic song of his, so it's probably set up differently than like his heavier dubstep stuff, but we're going to really be paying attention to this column right here of all the sins. I think that that's probably the most interesting thing out of this, because a lot of people just have Ableton things that they all just go to the master. Like all their tracks will go to the master, and Skrillex does not do that. And I have not been doing that in my productions either since I learned this technique of routing, not to the buses here, but just like creating like a track here and treating it like a bus, and having different compression settings on these different buses, and that's what we're going to really dive into today. So let's let it play some. So you can tell there's a big delay on it, so his buffer size is really big. So like, we're not going to be able to figure out how these sounds are made, but that one right there, I can tell that it's the auto pan, like set to like chop the audio with the phase turned all the way left. That's another thing. I think San Holo also did a tutorial this week that went into that. I use that all the time. I love it. You can see there's a lot of tracks here. And so how many tracks? 180. Woo! Okay, but here, let's look into this. You can see here this REFS, that's reference tracks, which is something every producer should get used to doing. He's got all these tracks where he's trying to figure out either ideas or levels, and they're all in there, and they're probably routed directly to the master, and when which he clicks on the master chain, we'll see why that's important. And also in here you can see there's a pre-master and these chains, specifically chain hype and chain basic, and you can see both of these are going to the chain group, and then the chain group is going to the pre-master. So paying attention to this pre-master versus the master versus the chains is going to be the most interesting thing we're going to get out of this video. It's about the gain staging of everything, and his mixes are just flawless, so I think it's definitely something of extreme value. Okay, so right here we can see this orange group is sort of like his melodic stuff, and you can see a lot of the bells and kalimbas. These are all going to this basic chain, the chain basic, while this Bowser flute is going to the keys section, which I know, but we haven't seen it, but up there the keys section is going straight to the pre-master. And so this group right here is actually going to a different route than this group or this group. Also, this music box is going to there. And while this stuff like 4 minutes of good vibes, I think is what that file originally stood for, that's going straight to the master. And so they're getting different processing, and the gain staging is going to be different for those things. And I think that's important because I think all these melodic things have like, they'll all get squished together in this particular way, while other things don't get that squishing and therefore stand out as different in the mix. Also down here we can see it's all very simple, probably because they went through a lot more processing to get to the sounds, but maybe not. You can see there's just some reverb, which is off. It looks like it only turns on at some certain point, EQ, and you'll see a lot of this, the OTT. And the OTT stands for over the top compression, and it is EDM music, and it looks like it's just set to the normal settings. All he did was turn up the output and change the amount to halfway, so it's like parallel processing. Also, I thought it was interesting that he's got some of the sub from the kalimbas in here, which I wonder if that basic chain that it's all routing to, if that's got an EQ. Unfortunately, he doesn't click on that channel in this video, so we don't really know, but I have a feeling that he cuts out all the sub bass in just one go on that chain, which could be why it's being sent to that chain. Also, something here I think is interesting. We can see we're at bar 25, and most people won't hear this, but there's these like background haze. And if we go earlier in the video, when he scrolls down to the bottom, we'll actually see, yeah, this right here, this little part right here, this is actually crowd chants, which I thought was an interesting way, but it's like, go back and listen to it, but you can barely hear it in there, but it is definitely there. And also that he has these crowd cheering things on the drops, which I honestly couldn't hear at all, but I'm assuming that they're there in the background, and I thought that was pretty interesting, and that's going straight to the pre-master. And what I thought was interesting is, yeah, just what things get sent to the pre-master and what things get sent to the chains. You hear that? So subtle. There's a lot of little subtle things. So you can see here he's doing some mid-side EQing. Almost in all cases, I see him bringing down the sides, trying to make it more mono. In almost every case in this. Okay, so what's going on? This is the processing on that main vocal chop thing, which if you look here is a rendering of like multiple groups of things that get like all this stuff gets rendered into one audio later, and so he's like processing by layer. And you can see here he's using the Pro Q3s, more taking down those sides, and then the Fab Filter Pro L, which is my favorite limiter. And you can see right here he's using this technique of resonant EQing, and which I thought was really interesting. In almost every case where he uses a Pro Q3, he's using it not as a general EQ, but to take away very specific frequencies. And then he uses the Ableton EQ to more generally EQ things. Oh, also it was set to, there's a specific setting in there. Yeah, it's set to linear phase medium. I think that was worthwhile to notice. And also you'll notice sometimes in here, not on this one, but he'll actually use the EQ to boost the volume. Yeah, see, look, he's doing ducks at specific frequencies, and they're sort of like reacting to the music, being almost like multi-band dynamics, but oh yeah, and then there he was using the Pro L, which I looked online for this MTK presets, but I couldn't find it, so it might be worthwhile to like copy down these presets of what these are, because he seems to use this not only on vocals, but everything uses this preset. And sometimes on instruments it's doing like 3 dB of gain, and other times it's doing 14 on like more subtle things. And also I thought was interesting is that he's filling in the entire space. Look, there's like da 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 noise, da 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 da, noise, da 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 da. And so he's like really filling in every single gap here on the drop. Yeah, see, look, there's that 14 dB. But it's the same preset, same settings here. And also something to really notice when going through this is that there is a lot of reverses from one section into another. And so also here, this is the main vocal part, and we'll notice that it is actually being sent directly to the master. It's bypassing that pre-master. Almost everything in here goes to the pre-master or that basic chain, or the hype chain, and the vocals are the one thing that goes directly to the master. So that's going to be getting less compression, and it's going to really be able to stand on top of everything else. I thought that's just brilliant to me. And you can see here he's using the regular EQ8 to just like shape the sound, and then using the OTT to give it punch, and then probably taking out those highs, because this thing boosts that OTT boosts the highs quite a bit. Oh, so here he's on the master channel, and we can see he's using camel fat on here, which, man, it would be so interesting to see what that setting is, and also to see what this Ozone 5 is doing, not even Ozone 8. And then he's using that's to monitor the wave shape. I'm guessing that if I had to guess, this thing is like acting sort of as a limiter and like doing a little bit of saturation. And this thing, I don't know what this thing's doing, because if we look at this, opens it up, look at this, -3. -3 fluffs. That's so loud. I usually have my tracks that sound amazing on big speakers between 10 and 7, -10 and -7, which is plenty loud, but Skrillex is just able to push this so much further, and I see a lot of people push it into that realm. And louder doesn't mean better. I think he's able to do that because of this gain staging technique that I've been mentioning throughout the video, is that he's able to retain clarity while also pushing the things that really need to be pushed. Because like I'll listen to other people's tracks and they'll just like limit the whole track to get it to that loud, and it does not sound good. But Skrillex is able to do it and make it sound good because of this gain staging technique, where he's sending the things that really need to be compressed heavily to its own bus, and then sending the things that don't need to be compressed as heavily to their own unique bus, and then they get put together, because those vocals do not sound squashed, they sound dynamic, and that is because they are they're being sent directly to the master above everything else. And also another thing is that because it's at -3 LUFS there, that means this ozone isn't even doing anything, because this ozone's after this. And so I'm imagining, I don't know what it's doing. Maybe it's just monitoring something. Maybe it's doing some dithering. Maybe it's even lowering the volume by a point of a dB or something like that. I'm not really sure. Or maybe it's stereo spreading, because Ozone 5 stereo spreading was unique, and they changed it once they went to 6, which is something I noticed that was interesting. But I don't know why it would be after this, because I bet he does most of his mastering inside the pre-master, which I bet is like a Pro L. At least that's what I've been told by the people that have collaborated with him. And then just like getting the loudness out of the actual track itself as opposed to out of the master. See, that sound right there, that's the chunky sound, which is a little too much in my opinion, but for him, I feel like it gets that energy. Also on here, I noticed that there's this Valhalla shimmer, which I didn't really know about. I'm familiar with the Valhalla reverbs, but I wasn't familiar with the shimmer. And yeah, it's actually really cool. I went and checked it out because of this. My mic's falling. Anyways, hopefully y'all can hear me. Yeah, and then also he has the dimension expander here. Really not a lot of fancy plugins on this, which I think is why it's so brilliant. Probably uses a lot more plugins in the actual designing of the sounds. So if we look here, these big sounds are also being sent to that basic chain. You can see right there. Which, man, it'd be so interesting to hear what goes on those things. But also, it's interesting to note, like, it's this 4 minutes of good vibes thing is probably just him jamming around and then him chopping it up later on. And that's something I see on Mr. Bill's tutorials a lot. Shout out Mr. Bill. Because then you can just like be creative in that moment and then chop it up later. Yeah, and it goes back to this. He really clicks on this same few things. Oh, look, there he clicked on the 4 minutes of good vibes. And something interesting from this, I thought, was the fact that look at this amp. It's cranked. The gain, the middle, set to heavy, and then the dry wet is a little bit there, and then obviously taking out some lows, adding some reverb in, taking out some of the highs because that's cranked. So I wanted to show y'all here, he's doing it on a kalimba. So I've got this kalimba pluck that I've made in CRM by turning the sample into a wavetable, which is pretty cool. Yeah, like that. And so I wanted to show y'all the technique that he was doing. You turn on the OTT and then turn on the amp and then EQ it. It's actually very effective, because if you just have these at their basic settings, but then this at full, it's a different sound. It's like a little messier, and so it's a little cleaner to actually just crank this stuff and then just have the drivette be slightly lower. I thought that was very cool. Oh, also a thing like here at the beginning, we'll actually hear rain, I believe. Yeah. You hear that? It's like a little stream of rain. That's something I'm really big into in my tracks, is creating a real space at the beginning and the end of tracks that the track exists in. Because like a lot of electronic music can sound overly electronic and not real, and I think that's what Skrillex does a really great job of, is making his tracks feel real and like they're alive. And I think a big part of that has to do with a combination of adding in those Foley sounds and then also using these crowd chants and things like that. Yeah, and really that gain staging on here, so that way they can be soft and dynamic here at the beginning, while the loud things on the drop can really be loud. I think that's, like I keep on saying, that's the #1 takeaway from this video. Anything else on here? Oh yeah, at the very beginning, at the top, we can see I mentioned the hype chain. There's only one thing in this whole track that goes to the hype chain, and that's the sub, which I thought was interesting. So that must be, the hype chain must be treated differently. So the sub is treated differently than everything else in this song. And then there's whatever this jungle as is, it's going on, also going to the hype chain. I could not figure out what those were though. Also, you can see it's BWB's 808s Volume 2, which is Big White Beats Volume 2, which I could not find a download of online. All the links seem to be broken. And then I found one link, like a PayPal, but it didn't like necessarily say whether you'd actually get the samples or if it was donating. So I didn't do it. Maybe one of y'all will do it. But that's where those samples are from. And other than that, it looks like most of all this stuff. Oh, also look, he's using the MIDI trigger for his sidechaining of his kicks. And then also you can see here that he's layering his kicks, and then sending the kicks to this, and then he renders them down into one thing, and then using this MIDI to sidechain everything. And so he's not actually listening to the kick for the sidechain. Also, I thought was interesting is that he has the millisecond delay on 2 here, so the kicks are delayed a tad bit. And he's also got a different like build kick layer. So he's got his main kicks here, and then a build kick, which is different. Yeah, and he's also got like a snare group here, which he doesn't really go into at all. And all these things are being sent to, yeah, the drums are being sent directly to the pre-master. The kick and the snare and the cymbals are all sent directly to the pre-master, and so they don't go through that basic chain or the hype chain, which I thought was interesting. And then what else? Let's see, oh yeah, also he's got, yeah, look at this Second Sky intro. So I know Second Sky was Porter Robinson's festival they threw recently, and so interesting he had his own unique intro for that set, but he kept it in there, though it's muted. Sounds like he cuts up a lot of jams. Yeah, I went into that. Yeah, I think I've covered most of everything, at least that I saw. I'm sure it'd be interesting in the comments below. Let me know if you saw anything that I didn't mention. And yeah, I think the only thing is I want to, again, my name's AHEE. I make my own music. And I also make sample packs, and I wanted to share some of y'all. If y'all are fans of Skrillex, you're probably watching this video because you love Skrillex. Me too. I made some of these dark rave stabs in Serum. I have a preset pack where I recreated a bunch of old rave stabs. I know Skrillex uses those a lot in his tunes. Yeah, I thought that would be useful for some of y'all out there. Oh yeah, the Mint House. Yeah, so those you can grab here on Splice on my Rave Reimagined pack. They're Serum presets, but they're also in audio, and I have like 40 other sample packs too, so check those out. Also here, my AHEE's Magic Racks here on my Gumroad. I'll put links below in the video. And then also my futuristic trap drums have a lot of really interesting 808s in them if y'all are looking for good 808s. And the AHEE's Magic Ableton rack, I'll show you one thing off this, is the robot maker. So this is that classic
Rude boy bass, mash up the place.
That sample. And I just put the robot maker on.
Rude boy bass, mash up the place. Rude boy bass, mash up the place.
Definitely a fun one to play around with. And then also I have the Magic Knob, AHEE's Magic Box with 2 knobs. And this is sort of like an advanced OTT in a way. It does a little bit more than OTT, but it does it all with just 1 knob. So. And usually I just put in a little bit on stuff. Some things need more, but I usually just put in a little bit of the magic. And yeah. I hope y'all enjoyed this. Hope you could hear me. Hope you learned something. Comment below. Let me know what you learned. All right. Peace, aliens.